So here's a question that nobody gives you an honest answer to. What does making six figures actually feel like? Not the Instagram version where everyone's posting about their success and living their best life. I'm talking about the real day-to-day experience of crossing that $100,000 threshold that everyone treats like it's the promised land. Because here's the thing, and this is what I wish someone had told me years ago. Making $100,000 feels completely different than you think it's going to feel. It's not what the movies show you, it's not what your broke friends imagine. And it's definitely not what kept you motivated during all those years of grinding. My name is Mike, and I'm going to tell you exactly what six figures actually feels like. The good, the bad, and the parts that nobody talks about because they're too busy trying to look successful on social media. If you want the unfiltered truth about money that might completely change your perspective, hit that subscribe button and smash the like if this resonates. The build-up versus the reality, let me start by telling you what I thought $100,000 would feel like. Because for years, that was the number, that was the goal. Hit six figures and everything changes, right? You're successful, you've made it. Financial stress disappears, life gets easier. I remember being in my early 20s, making $35,000 and thinking, if I could just make $100,000, I'd be set, I could afford anything I wanted. I'd feel rich. All my money problems would be solved. That number represented freedom. Security, success, arrival, fast forward to actually hitting it. And the first thing I felt was, wait for it, nothing, not relief, not excitement. Not the overwhelming sense of achievement I'd been imagining for years. Just nothing special. I checked my bank account. Saw the deposit that pushed me over $100,000 for the year. And my immediate thought was, okay, now what? It was like crossing a finish line that turned out to be just another mile marker. And before you think I'm just being ungrateful or jaded, let me explain exactly why it feels this way. Because understanding this is crucial to your own financial journey. The tax reality check, here's the first thing that hits you when you make $100,000. You don't actually make $100,000. After federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and if you're smart, 401k contributions. You're looking at taking home maybe $65,000 to $70,000 depending on your state. So that six-figure salary that sounds so impressive, it's actually a five-figure take-home. You're bringing home $5,400 to $5,800 per month, which is good money, don't get me wrong. But it's not I'm rich money, and this is where the psychological disconnect happens. Society treats $100,000 like you've arrived, like you're wealthy now. But your actual lived experience is that of someone making $65,000. There's this massive gap between the perception and the reality. Your friends who make $50,000 think you're rolling in money, but you're only bringing home $1,500 more per month than someone making $60,000. That's not nothing, but it's not the life-changing difference people imagine. The lifestyle inflation trap. Here's what actually happens to most people when they hit six figures. And I fell into this trap too, so I'm speaking from experience. Your expenses mysteriously rise to match your income. When I was making $40,000, I lived in a $900 apartment, drove a used car, and brought lunch to work most days. Those were necessities because that's what I could afford. Hit $100,000 and suddenly that apartment felt too small, too old, not in the right neighborhood. So I upgraded to a $1,800 apartment because I could afford it now, right? I deserve it. The used car felt embarrassing for someone making six figures. So I got a newer car with a payment, not crazy expensive, but definitely more than I needed to spend. Bringing lunch felt like something broke people did. I was successful now, I could afford to eat out. It adds up, but you don't notice because you're making good money. Before I knew it, my monthly expenses had ballooned from about $2,200 to $4,500. I was making more than double what I used to make, but somehow I had less discretionary income at the end of each month. This is lifestyle inflation, and it's the silent killer of six-figure earners. You're making great money, but you're still living paycheck to paycheck because your expenses scaled with your income. The peer group shift, something weird happens when you start making $100,000 that nobody warns you about. Your peer group shifts, and with that shift comes a whole new set of expenses and expectations. When you're making $40,000, you hang out with people making $30,000 to $50,000. You go to cheap restaurants. You have game nights at home. You do free activities. Everyone's in the same financial boat. Start making $100,000 and you're suddenly surrounded by people making $100,000 to $200,000. And their idea of normal is completely different. Let's grab dinner isn't $15 at a casual spot anymore. It's $60 at a nice restaurant. Let's go on a trip isn't a cheap weekend getaway. It's $2,000 international flights. Come to my wedding isn't a local event. It's a destination wedding that costs $3,000 to attend. And here's the thing. You feel pressure to keep up. Because if you say, I can't afford that, people look at you confused. You make six figures, of course you can afford it. But the math doesn't work that way. Someone making $150,000 can afford things that someone making $100,000 genuinely cannot. But from the outside, you're both six-figure earners, so you're expected to have the same lifestyle. The status anxiety making $100,000 creates this weird psychological space where you're too rich to relate to average earners, but too poor to keep up with actually wealthy people. You can't complain about money to people making $50,000 because they think you're insane. You make $100,000 and you're stressed about money? Must be nice to have those problems. But you also can't keep up with people making $200,000 plus without destroying your finances. They're buying houses you can't afford, taking vacations you can't justify, driving cars that would wreck your budget, so you're stuck in this middle zone where you feel pressure from both directions. You're supposed to be successful, but you don't feel wealthy. You're making good money, but life still feels expensive. This creates what I call six-figure status anxiety. You're constantly trying to figure out if you can afford things, if you should afford things, if you deserve things. The mental gymnastics are exhausting. What you can actually afford, let me break down what $100,000 actually buys you in 2026. Because the reality might surprise you. Take home after taxes and retirement contributions, roughly $65,000 annually. $5,400 monthly in a medium cost of living city. Here's what that actually covers. Rent or mortgage, $1,800 safe amount. Not stretching. Utilities and internet, $200. Car payment and insurance, $600 if you have a car payment. Food and groceries, $600. Gas or transportation, $200. Health insurance and medical, $300. Phone and subscriptions, $100. That's $3,800 in basic monthly expenses. You've got $1,600 left. That's your discretionary income for everything else. Clothes, entertainment, eating out, unexpected expenses, gifts, travel, savings beyond retirement, everything. Now $1,600 monthly in discretionary income is good. It's way better than having $200. But it's not do whatever you want money. You still have to make choices. You still have to budget. You can still screw up financially. One unexpected $3,000 expense like a medical bill or car repair. And suddenly you're stressed, one expensive vacation. And you're recovering financially for months. The comparison trap. Here's where making six figures gets psychologically brutal. You start comparing yourself to other six-figure earners and you realize the range is massive. Someone making $100,000 and someone making $180,000 are both six-figure earners, but that $80,000 difference is literally life-changing. That's more than many people's entire salaries. The person making $180,000 is taking home an extra $4,000 per month after taxes. Compared to you, they can do things you genuinely cannot afford. But from the outside, you're in the same category. And then you see people making $250,000, all still six figures or close to it technically, but living in completely different financial realities. This comparison trap is brutal because it makes you feel like you're failing even though objectively you're doing well. You made it to six figures, but you still feel broke compared to people just a bit ahead of you. The unexpected expenses, something nobody tells you about making $100,000. Your expenses somehow become more expensive. Not because you're spending more on the same things, But because the universe seems to scale costs to your income, when I made $40,000, if something broke, I fixed it cheaply or dealt with it. I'd figure out a way to do it myself, making $100,000. The same problem somehow costs $500. Because now I can afford the proper fix, or the professional service, or the quality solution. The problem isn't different, but the cost mysteriously is. Your dentist recommends procedures you've never heard of. Your mechanic suggests preventative maintenance that never came up before. People quote you higher prices because they assume you can afford it. And you can afford it technically, but it all adds up. $1,200 for this, $2,000 for that. Suddenly, you're spending $6,000 on necessities that you didn't even know existed when you made less. The savings expectation versus reality, here's another disconnect. When you make $100,000, people expect you to be saving a ton of money, and you expect yourself to be saving a ton of money. Financial advisors say you should be saving 20% of your income at $100,000 gross. That's $20,000 annually. Sounds doable, right? But remember, you're not taking home $100,000. You're taking home $65,000 after taxes and retirement. So now you're trying to save $20,000 from $65,000. That's actually 31% of your take-home pay. After your $3,800 in basic expenses, you have $1,600 monthly. Saving $1,667 per month to hit that $20,000 means you're spending basically nothing on anything discretionary. No eating out, no entertainment, no clothes, no nothing. So realistically, most six-figure earners are saving way less than 20% of gross. Maybe 10 to 15% if they're disciplined. And they feel guilty about it because they're making so much money but not saving enough. What it actually gets you, okay, so after all that, what does $100,000 actually get you? What does it actually feel like? It feels like security, not wealth. You're not worried about making rent. You can handle most normal emergencies without panic. You have options that people making less don't have. It feels like breathing room. You're not counting dollars at the grocery store. You can buy the name brand without guilt. You can afford decent health insurance. It feels like the beginning, not the end. $100,000 doesn't feel like a rival. It feels like you've unlocked the ability to actually start building wealth. You can invest meaningfully. You can save for a house. You can think long-term. It feels like responsibility because now you don't have excuses. You're making good money if you're not building wealth. It's on you, not your circumstances. Not your luck. It feels anticlimactic. All those years imagining this moment, and when it comes, life is just life. Bills still exist, stress still exists, problems still exist, just with a slightly bigger bank account. The uncomfortable truths, let me hit you with some truths about six figures that people don't want to admit. $100,000 in a high cost of living city is middle class. Not rich, not struggling, just middle. You're a normal person with a normal life paying normal bills. $100,000 doesn't solve your problems, it just changes them. You stop worrying about covering basics and start worrying about building wealth. Different stress, not less stress. Most people making $100,000 are just as broke as people making $60,000. They just have nicer stuff to show for it, bigger apartments they can barely afford, newer cars with payments, expensive habits. $100,000 is the beginning of wealth building, not wealth itself. It's the income level where you finally have enough left over to actually invest meaningfully if you don't screw it up with lifestyle. Inflation. You'll probably still feel broke sometimes because lifestyle inflation is real. Because unexpected expenses happen because money is relative. What you should actually do if you're making six figures or about to hit it. Here's what you need to do to not waste this opportunity. Freeze your lifestyle. Seriously, whatever you're spending now, lock it in. When you get raises or hit $100,000, don't upgrade anything. Bank every extra dollar, resist the peer pressure. You don't need to keep up with people making $150,000 or $200,000. Stay in your financial lane. The car you drove making $60,000 still works. Actually calculate your take-home, know what you're really working with after taxes. Stop thinking in gross income terms. It's misleading. Set aggressive savings goals. Not based on gross income, but based on take home. If you're taking home $65,000, aim to save $20,000 of that. It's hard but doable. Invest the difference. Every dollar you didn't spend because you resisted lifestyle inflation goes into index funds. Retirement accounts, building wealth, remember it's a tool, not a trophy. 100,000 is a wealth building tool, not a symbol that you've made it. Use it to build actual wealth instead of just looking wealthy. The real answer, so what does $100,000 actually feel like? Honestly, it feels like $100,000. It doesn't feel like poverty, but it definitely doesn't feel like wealth. It feels like enough, but not abundance. It feels like you've graduated from survival mode to building mode. You're not scraping by anymore. But you're not coasting either, you have options. But you still have to make choices. The biggest shock is how normal it feels. You thought everything would be different, life-changing, transformative, but you wake up the same person with the same problems, just with a bit more money to deal with them, and maybe that's the real lesson. Financial milestones don't change who you are or how you feel. They just change what's possible. What you do with that possibility is up to you. Most people hit six figures and immediately inflate their lifestyle to match. They end up in the exact same financial position they were in before. Just with nicer stuff, they waste the opportunity. The smart ones hit six figures and live like they're making $60,000. They bank the difference, they invest aggressively, they build actual wealth 5 years later. Those are the people who are actually financially free. Not because they made $100,000, but because they didn't spend it. If you're making six figures and feeling broke, you're not alone. Most six-figure earners feel exactly the same way. The difference between those who build wealth and those who stay on the treadmill is what they do with that realization. You can either accept that this is just how it is and keep spending, or you can recognize the opportunity and actually use it to build something. If this video gave you a reality check about what six figures actually means, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment telling me, are you making six figures? Does this match your experience? Or are you grinding toward it and this changed your perspective? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.